Welcome to Compass Stories. I'm your host, Veronica Sterling. And my work is centered on helping people who are in the middle of disruption rediscover meaning, strengthen connection, and move forward with courage. I do this through speaking, sharing experiences, and storytelling. I'm grateful that you've joined me for a conversation today. And if it resonates with you, I hope that you will share it with someone else in your life. Thanks for being here. Listener, I am in the Redwoods in Northern California. I'm at a campground right now in a town called Klamath, California, which has sort of situated us right in the middle of the Redwood National Park. And all of our time here on the California coast has been just absolutely perfect. Do you see this blue sky and this sunshine behind me? It has been like this every day for the past week. Just 70, sunny, not a cloud anywhere. I'm sitting at my campsite now, so the camper's right in front of me, this river's behind me, and every night we get to come home from hiking and scooting and just doing all of the adventures of the day, and the sun sets right over this river. So this has been a lovely retreat, a little respite to stay at, I think. The redwood trees are just absolutely incredible to see. I was on a hike today and I said, this forest is so pretty. And then I caught myself because calling it pretty just didn't even seem like a big enough word to really describe how just absolutely majestic everything is out here. The old growth forest has trees in it that are, 1,500, 2,000 years old. They are on average like 390 feet tall. And they're just so magnificent to see. And there are these ferns on the ground that I swear some of them were nearly as tall as I am. And there's just moss on some of the trees. It was stunning. Today we had a real adventure. We were doing a scoot around a scenic road, and I will tell you, we're about halfway through this trip right now, and we have scooted about 970 miles. So you can help me guess how many miles you think that we'll be at when we finally make it back home again. And mile number 964 of this trip will always be memorable. We were on this narrow one-way road called the Coastal Loop Trail here in Klamath, and it was beautiful. It does take you right to an overlook to see the ocean. And as we were scooting down it, there were no other cars around, and we came turning around a bit of a bend, and there was a black bear just walking across the road in front of us. Now, fortunately, it wasn't like right in front of us. We had some distance. I would love to just tell you that my wilderness training kicked right in and we knew exactly what to do. And maybe that would be somewhat of an accurate statement. We stopped. We started honking the horn on the scooter, which, by the way, if you've ever heard the horn of a Vespa, it is not an aggressive sound. It's just the cutest little toot toot toot-a-loot kind of horn that there ever could be. And we lifted up our visors and started yelling and saying, "Go away, bear," just trying to make ourselves, big and loud so the bear would know that we were there. But really, after that, all we could do was sit there and wait for the bear to decide that it was done being on the road and eating some of the plants and vegetation that was just alongside it. And so that meant that we were just cackling and laughing and just kind of freaking out. It was such an exciting moment. The bear did cross the street after about 10 minutes and we were able to scoot on. That was absolutely the best wildlife sighting I've ever had on any trip anywhere. There has been a quote that some of this time here on the coast kind of just brought back to my mind. I'll read it to you. Maybe you've heard it before. The quote is, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." This is a quote that's often attributed to Viktor Frankl, and I think it's been inspired over the years by his work, even if he isn't the one who said it exactly. But it really came to my mind, and so I thought about that in my journal to share with you here. At our last campsite, the ocean was right outside our window, and the waves were just coming ashore a couple nights there, just so hard and so loud. And all of that, this big sky, the water, it seems to create space. And I found a lot of my slower time along the coast here created this space for me to consider new thoughts and new questions. And when that quote came to my mind, one question that has really followed me lately is, if we have the freedom to choose our response, why do we so often remain stuck? First, I'll say I don't think it's because we're incapable. I think it's because we're slowly beginning to confuse our circumstances with our identity. Or like everything that's happening might be the only choice that's left for us, right? We let our circumstances begin to form this narrative about what is possible. And after a while, we start to believe that that narrative is some story that's just all based in fact. Stories about who we are, about what people like us are supposed to do. I can see how that has happened in my own life. A few years ago, I thought life would follow a fairly predictable path. You know this path. Work hard, advance the career, stay the course until retirement. But somewhere along the way, I realized I had started treating this one possible future as if it were the only future. And just imagine that if I had stayed attached to that story, if I had never made some other kind of response, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be recording this episode of a podcast from a 42-year-old motorhome while waiting for the sun to set over this river. I wouldn't be meeting people whose stories are impacting and changing me. And I wouldn't be discovering all these new parts of myself through this season that is just filled with uncertainty, creativity, and growth. But second, I've learned that purpose rarely waits until we feel ready for it. I didn't set out in my life to become someone who publicly talks about grief and uncertainty or setbacks or any of the difficult parts of life. Honestly, there are moments when having these conversations, sharing these thoughts with you, it just all feels uncomfortable for me. But here I am. I'm building on this message and I am sharing it even while I don't feel ready. I am doing this work even if I don't always feel certain. And that is because people keep reaching out. They keep telling me that the message and the conversations matter. that hearing someone like me acknowledge the hard parts makes them feel seen in their own journey and less alone. And so I've learned here that readiness isn't always the prerequisite for action. Sometimes action comes first, and then we grow into the role while we're already living it. Finally, I do think we'll remain stuck if we don't put the work into our dreams. The dream can be really exciting, right? But the work sometimes that it takes to make it happen, it's kind of ordinary. I share a lot of the exciting parts of this adventure, but behind the scenes, I'll tell you that every morning for me starts with an early wake-up call. I'm sending emails. I'm searching for new connections, new conversations, new rooms to share my message. It's doing that. It's there where the growth really happens. It's being in pursuit of the work. Listener, I think maybe these reflections hold an invitation for both of us today. I want to invite you to consider pausing to reflect on stimulus and response in your own life. Where in your life have you confused your circumstances with your choices that are available? What story about your life have you accepted as a fact that might not be serving you anymore? What could you begin? What next step could you take? What meaningful response could you start to prepare even before you feel ready? And what small step have you been postponing? I believe that making even a small change in your direction can lead to somewhere entirely new. So I hope that this journal entry encourages you to pause, to think about the circumstances in your life and where you might be able to respond differently to reach a more desirable outcome, to shift the direction just the tiniest bit on your compass. For now, thanks for joining me on this journey. I will tell you that I checked the weather and we leave tomorrow to head to a new destination, and there is snow on the ground. I hope you're doing well, listener, and I'll see you at the next destination. Thank you for listening to this episode of Compass Stories. I'm your host, Veronica Sterling. And if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to hear more and share it with others. Thank you for doing so. That's really helpful for me. To learn more about my message and connect, you can find me at www.veronicasterling.com.